how can we produce more and more crops? It includes nutrient management, irrigation management, and cropping management. So let's start with nutrient management. Actually, plants need certain chemical elements for their growth, development, and metabolic activities called plant nutrients. There are 16 essential elements required by plants for their proper growth. 16 essential. The nutrients supplied by air, water, and soil can be studied in this table. Air supply carbon and oxygen, water supply hydrogen and oxygen, and soil supplies macronutrient and micronutrients. We will discuss these macro and micronutrients in detail now. Macronutrients are the elements that are required relatively in large quantity. For example, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. Also keep in mind, student, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen are also macronutrient, but they are taken from atmosphere itself. Now, micronutrients. The elements which are required in very less quantity are called micronutrient. For example, iron, manganese, copper, zinc, boron, molybdenum, and chlorine. These are micronutrients. Student, you know there is a need of the mineral replenishment. Actually, crop plants regularly withdraw mineral from soil. Unless and until minerals are replenished at intervals, the plant will develop disorders in structure, growth, reproduction, functioning, and susceptibility to disease. Therefore, mineral replenishment is done through addition of manure and fertilizers. Crop plants regularly withdraw minerals from soil, you know well. Unless and until minerals are replenished at intervals, the plant will develop disorder in its structure, growth, reproduction, functioning, and susceptibility to disease due to lack of mineral. So, mineral replenishment is done through addition of manures and fertilizers. Now, we'll start with manures. Actually, they are organic substances obtained from the decomposition of plants and animal waste, like cow dung and plant residues. For example, farmyard manure, compost, vermicompost, green manure. These all four types are of the manure itself. There are certain advantages of manure. Let's discuss. Manure restores the soil texture for better retention of water and aeration. Means they maintain the texture of soil. They enrich the soil with nutrients. They maintain the humus content of the soil. Humus is brown colored. By using biological waste material as a manure, we recycle the waste and protect our environment from chemical, that is fertilizer. This is one of the most important advantages. Let's discuss type of manure. First one, FYM. Students, at your screen you can see the decomposed mixture of cattle excreta and urine with some agricultural materials. It is changing into organic matter on leftover for some time, for some weeks. So this is organic, this is recycled and chemical free. Okay. The second is compost. It is prepared by the decomposition of plant and animal waste in compost pit. In FYM, no compost pit, but here compost pit is needed. Keep in mind, compost prepared by earthworm is called vermicompost. The compost is rich in organic matter and nutrients also. So clear, compost and vermicompost. Vermi means worm, earthworm. The third one is green manure. Before sowing seeds in the field, some green plant like sun hemp, guar and versim etc. are mixed in the soil by plowing. You can see at the screen that they are plowing the field. These plants turn into green manure and make the soil rich in nitrogen and phosphorus content. Is it clear? Fertilizers are commercially produced chemical formulations that provide nutrients to crop plants for overcoming soil deficiency and enhancing their growth and yield. Actually, a complete fertilizer is one which contains all three critical elements, that is nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium in it. Now, four main types of fertilizers. Number one, nitrogenous fertilizers, which contain nitrogen as the principal nutrient. Second one is phosphatic fertilizers that contain phosphorus as the principal nutrient. Third one is potassium fertilizer, which contain potassium as the chief nutrient. And fourth one is complex fertilizers. When a fertilizer contains two or more critical nutrients such as nitrous phosphate and ammonium sulfate. Now, application of fertilizers. It should be applied carefully, students. How? Fertilizer should be applied scientifically in terms of proper dose and timing. Second, fertilizer should not be applied directly to soil. If the crop is standing, then it should be sprayed. Third, fertilizer should not get washed away due to excessive irrigation or rain. It should not be washed away. Fourth, fertilizers can be applied before sowing, during irrigation, or sprayed on standing crops. Just look at the picture at your screen. There are some advantages of fertilizers. You can say functions of fertilizers. What are these? Fertilizers are nutrient specific, means they supply specific nutrient to soil. One, two, three, whatever. They are easy to store and transport, can be stored easily. They are required in very small amount, no need to have more. And last one, they are readily absorbed by the plants. Why? Because they are soluble in water. So just put the fertilizer, it is getting absorbed by the plant. But some disadvantages also there. They are non-biodegradable. So they are water pollutant. You can see at the picture. They cause changes in soil chemistry, making it either too alkaline or too acidic. What is the type of fertilizer? It will decide the acidity and alkalinity of the soil. They are quite expensive. They harm soil microorganism. They give only short-term benefits. So overall, fertilizers are not good. Actually, there are a large number of weeds, insect, pests, and diseases which attack the food crops and damage them. Out of these, insect pests are one of the most destructive causative agents of field crops, which cause great losses in the agricultural produce. If these weeds, insect, pests, and disease are not controlled at appropriate time, then they can damage the crop, leading to a loss of more than 50 to 60% of economic value. Therefore, it is needed. Let's start with wheat. You would have seen that when we grow a crop, in addition to crop plant, certain unwanted plant also grow in the field simultaneously. Actually, these unwanted wild plants which grow with crop plant in the cultivated fields are called weeds. Weeds grow in the crop field and compete with the main crop. They consume a lot of soil nutrients, water, fertilizers, sunlight, and space, which are meant for the crop plant. Weeds may sometimes act as alternate host for microorganisms and different insects which feed on weeds and attack the crop plant, finally destroying them. The insect and pest. Generally, insect pests attack the plant in three ways. Student, any organism which damage or destroy a crop plant is called a pest. Any organism which damage or destroy a crop plant is called a pest. So how can they damage? They cut roots, stem and leaves, thereby destroying the crop. They suck the cell sap from various parts of the plant. They bore into the stem and the fruits and eat them from inside. So they can damage the crop. Now some disease causing pathogen also there. A plant disease is a structural or physiological abnormality which is injurious to the plant and reduce its economic value. Some diseases are soil-borne, some airborne, and some water-borne diseases and caused by pathogens such as bacteria, fungi, and viruses. So we should use some preventive measures to prevent these diseases. These pathogens should be killed to enter the before entering the field. So how can we use some preventive measures? Actually, We should use resistant varieties of crops. The crops should be sown in their optimum time of sowing. We should adopt clean cultivation. The field should be plowed during summer season to destroy weeds and pests. We can use herbicide, insecticide, fungicides. These chemicals are sprayed on crop plants or used for treating seeds and soil. But keep in mind, excessive use of these chemicals create problems, student, since they can be poisonous to many plants and animal species. Some weed control methods are preventive methods such as proper seed bed preparation, timely sowing of crops, intercropping and crop rotation also help in weed control. Some other preventive measures are also there. We can use resistant varieties. We can use summer plowing, in which fields are plowed deep in summer to destroy weeds and pests. Water is one of the most essential requirements for crop production. In India, more than half of our cultivable area does not have irrigation facilities and depends on rainfall for crop production. Thus, agriculture in India is rain-fed, and the success of crop yields in most areas depend on timely monsoon and sufficient rainfall during growing season. The process of supplying water to the crops by means of canals, reservoirs, ponds, lakes, wells, tube wells, and tank is known as irrigation. Different kind of irrigation. The design, equipment, and technique of replenishing the soil water deficit by applying irrigation water is known as irrigation system. Depending upon the kind of water resources available, several irrigation systems are adopted in India to supply water to the agricultural lands. These are wells, canal system, river lift system, and tanks. So these are the different kinds of irrigation system in India. First of all, dug wells versus tube wells. The dug wells have their bottom below the groundwater level. The groundwater simply accumulates in the pit. From these pits, the water is lifted by mechanical means, either by using rope and container or bullock operated devices or the pumps. While in tube wells, iron pipes are inserted deep in the ground through boring. The water through these pipes is lifted by diesel or electricity operated pumps. These tube wells are continuously supply water depending upon the need. Now the canal system. Canal system is an extensive and elaborate irrigation system. Big canal are made which receive water from water reservoirs or from rivers. The main canal is further distributed into branch canal and branch canals into field channel or distributaries. These distributaries may serve an individual field or a group of field depending upon the area. Now next is river lift system. In the river lift system, water is directly drawn from the river for irrigation in the areas near rivers. These methods are adopted in those areas where canal flow is not sufficient or is irregular due to inadequate release of water from reservoir or from river. So you can see the river lift system at your screen. The next type of irrigation is tanks, small storage reservoirs which intercept and store the runoff water of smaller catchment areas are known as tanks. This technique is usually followed in the hilly areas having a slope. In the system of irrigation, small dams are constructed below the higher elevation of the catchment area. From these dams or tanks, the outflow of water is regulated according to the availability of water, which help in uniform distribution of water. Some other initiatives are also taking place. For example, fresh initiatives for increasing the water available for agriculture include rainwater harvesting and watershed management. This involves building small check dams, which lead to an increase in groundwater level. The check dams stop the rainwater from flowing away and also reduce soil erosion. In order to get maximum benefit, crops can be grown in different ways. Some of these ways have been described here, that is intercropping, mixed cropping, crop rotation. If we use this type of cropping patterns, then we can get more and more from the same field. So let's start with mixed cropping. Growing two or more crops simultaneously on the same piece of land is known as mixed cropping. Farmers have been growing two or more crops together on the same piece of land for many centuries. In India, different crops are used in mixed cropping. For example, soybean plus pigeon pea, sorghum plus pigeon pea, maize plus urd bean, etc. Now, intercropping. It can be defined as growing two or more crops simultaneously in the same field in a definite row pattern or tier system. In intercropping, the crops selected are those that have different nutrient requirement so that there is maximum utilization of nutrient available in the soil. In intercropping, a few crops rows alternate with a few rows of second crop. For example, we can grow soya bean with maize or pearl millet, that is vajra, with cowpea, that is lobia. There are some advantages of intercropping. What? It makes optimum utilization of natural resources such as sunlight, land, and water. It helps to maintain soil fertility. Intercropping also helps to prevent spread of pest and disease. The next pattern is crop rotation. When the same crop is grown in the same field year after year, it removes what? What removes? Particularly nutrient from the soil and reduces its fertility. The fertility of the soil can be restored by crop rotation. So, growing different crops on the same piece of land in a pre-planned succession is known as crop rotation.